Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer. If you're a parent, a caregiver, or a professional working with autistic kids, you already know that navigating food aversions, well, it can honestly be one of the most exhausting, emotionally draining parts of your whole day. So today we're going to explore some really fascinating, expert-backed strategies designed to help kids with their sensory eating habits, and we're going to do it in a very patient, low-pressure way.
Take a quick second and ask yourself, is mealtime a daily battle in your home? For so many caregivers, the answer is just a heavy, exhausted yes. You spend hours prepping a meal, only to be met with absolute refusal, tears, the whole shebang. It's incredibly common. And if you're feeling completely stressed out by these daily standoffs, it's really reassuring to know from the research that you are absolutely not alone here. There actually is a structured way out of this cycle. Autism Speaks offers a really vital grounding piece of advice for us. Stay calm and do not turn mealtimes into a battle. Which I know sounds super simple, right? But in the heat of the moment, it is literally so hard to practice. But this whole idea of de-escalation is actually the very foundation of the strategies we're going to be talking about. Experts recommend validating the reality that, yes, this is a tough struggle, while consciously choosing to just step away from the conflict. It's all about helping the child feel genuinely safe.
So here's our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with number 1, the mealtime challenge. Then we'll look at 2, foundation, health and environment. Next, we cover 3, building better meal routines, followed by 4, the art of food chaining. And finally, number 5, keeping mealtimes positive.
All right, kicking things off with part 1, the mealtime challenge, shifting to a low-pressure approach. And that brings us right to part 2, foundation, health and environment, setting the physical stage.
First things first, the experts recommend we look at biological factors, things like constipation, allergies, and reflux. These are actually highly common in autistic children, and they can cause profound discomfort. Caregivers are strongly advised to work directly with a pediatrician to rule these out right out of the gate. Why? Well, think about it. If a child has untreated reflux, eating literally causes them physical pain, and absolutely no amount of coaxing is going to overcome a biological pain response. So making sure they are pain-free is the absolute first step. Once those medical issues are ruled out, we move on to the physical environment to support their sensory needs. Making sure they have stable seating, maybe adding a footrest, or even just using rolled-up towels to improve posture. It can make a massive difference. Honestly, it is amazing how something as simple as a footrest can dramatically reduce sensory distress during a meal. When a child's core and feet are physically supported, they feel physically grounded. That naturally lowers their overall anxiety and allows them to actually focus on eating rather than burning all their energy just trying to keep their balance.
Let's move to and see how this builds into part 3, building better meal routines, timing and focus. Okay, a really common pitfall in meal routines is this idea of continuous grazing versus strict schedules. When a child is allowed to just constantly snack or graze throughout the day, they never actually feel true hunger. And if they aren't hungry, well, they naturally have zero motivation to try a new, potentially intimidating food. On the flip side, keeping to a strict schedule for meals and snacks ensures that the child comes to the table genuinely hungry. And that hunger naturally encourages them to be just a little bit more adventurous.
Along with timing, there has to be focus, and that means limiting distractions. Removing tablets and turning off the TV is absolutely crucial here. Screens completely hijack the brain's attention, right? They take focus entirely away from the body's natural internal hunger cues and away from the food sitting right in front of them. So for genuine mealtime awareness to happen, the screens just have to be put away.
Now for part 4, which is a real game changer, the art of food chaining, bridging the gap to new foods.
As this quote from Echo Autism expertly points out, we need to tune in to food textures that your child prefers to guide the introduction of new, similar foods. This right here is the secret to expanding a child's palate without all the pressure. The goal is to first identify their safe foods and then basically decode them. Is it crunchy? Is it beige? Is it smooth? We then match those specific textures or colors to carefully guide our next logical steps. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how food chaining works in practice. So step 1, you start with their absolute safe food. Let's say it's a highly specific brand of chicken nugget. Then step 2, once they are comfortable and they trust the routine, you introduce a slightly new brand of nugget. Same basic color and texture, but just slightly different. Then step 3, eventually you transition to homemade breaded chicken. It's this gradual, predictable change that doesn't trigger the child's sensory alarm bells.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the concept of the pinky nail portion. When introducing these newly chained foods, the research highlights taking incredibly small, gradual steps. We are literally talking about a tiny pinky nail-sized amount of a new food. If you put a giant scoop of something unfamiliar on their plate, their sensory sensitivities can instantly become overwhelmed. But a pinky nail portion? That's visually manageable. It acts as a gentle invitation, not a threat.
And, we have to remember that eating actually isn't the only goal at first. Allowing the child to start by merely touching or smelling the food before eating is so vital. If a child touches a new food or brings it up to their nose to just smell it, that interaction without consumption is a massive victory. It's a critical step in the whole process of sensory desensitization. Those little moments, they are absolutely worth celebrating.
Which leads us perfectly into our final phase, Part 5, Keeping Mealtimes Positive, Play, Praise, and Patience.
One of the very best ways to foster this kind of positive environment is to actually make food playful outside the context of eating. Using food for art projects, getting the kid involved in the physical cooking process, or even just arranging things into fun shapes, it can be totally transformative. When a child engages with food in a non-eating context, it completely removes the pressure of having to swallow it, and that makes interacting with new, strange textures feel safe, familiar, and honestly pretty fun.
So the crucial point is leaning heavily into positive reinforcement when they do interact with new foods. We're talking non-food rewards here, stickers, high praise, maybe some extra time for a favorite activity. Contrast that with forcing or punishing a child for not eating. The research clearly shows that forcing almost always backfires. It just creates this intense anxiety around the table, which reinforces the exact same food aversions that caregivers are trying so hard to gently dismantle.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought, kind of like a challenge. How can you make your child's very next meal an opportunity for play rather than pressure? Because you've got some incredible research-backed tools now, from checking their seating posture to introducing a tiny, pinky nail-sized portion of a new texture. Try reframing your very next meal. Take the pressure off, celebrate the small victories, and just watch as you gently nurture real, lasting progress. Thanks so much for learning with us today.